There are foods that were quietly removed from the table of common knowledge, not because they were unsafe or merely because of taste, but because across certain streams of tradition, they were said to thin the veil between what we normally perceive and what is normally hidden. That is a bold thing to say, and I say it carefully. Some ancient and marginal writings, preserved among the Nag Hammadi manuscripts and summarized in documents like the Gospel of Mary, recount teachings about opening a kind of interior eye. Those accounts are not canonical scripture. They belong to a different current, Gnostic writings that interpret the world through other symbols and cosmologies. Still, whether you accept those cosmologies or not, the reports are consistent in one striking idea. Perception can be trained, and there were practices, subtle, sensory, and sometimes culinary, that people used to change how they receive the world. If that piques your curiosity, comment "visible" below and stay with me for the rest of this exploration. The problem these texts diagnose is not moral weakness or spiritual failure. It is a filtering system built into human attention. Imagine your attention as a camera with multiple lenses. There is central focus, where the eye and brain invest most of their processing power, and there is peripheral sensitivity, a wider field that registers movement, tone, and nuance without demanding a narrative. Under normal conditions, our central vision and habitual attention sweep the peripheral field aside. This makes sense for survival and everyday efficiency. We avoid sensory overload. But the same mechanism that filters out static and noise can also filter out subtler patterns, fleeting presences, emotional siphons, and what some traditions call archons, entities or frequencies that feed on distraction and unexamined emotion. In Gnostic accounts, the archons are not a theatrical scare. They are metaphors for forces that operate through our habits of attention: distraction, fear, reactive thought. The Gospel of Mary and related texts describe a practice of learning to see what is normally invisible, not for spectacle, but to disempower what feeds on ignorance. Visibility in this sense is a form of boundary making. To see clearly is to close the gap that allows influence without consent. That is the stakes. If perception changes, so can the pattern of what feeds on us. How do you shift that filter? The reports that interest us here point to a sensory technique I will call the soft gaze. This is not an occult ritual. It is a way of using the eyes and attention with less aggression and more capaciousness. Practitioners describe it simply: lower light, relaxed eyes, peripheral breath, a non-reactive witness. In practice, it looks like sitting in dim or warm light, letting your gaze soften so that the hard edge of focus melts and the field of vision accepts blur.
It includes a steady but unforced breathing, a gentle opening of awareness to the space beyond the object directly in front of you. People who have experimented with this report subtle changes: fleeting shapes at the edge of vision, a different feel to the air in a room, impressions that read like emotional textures rather than images. Again, this is anecdotal and experiential. Gnostic texts frame it as seeing what the untrained eye cannot. Some modern interpreters add another dimension to this: diet. According to certain traditions, folklore, and contemporary practitioners, some foods prime the body-mind to be more receptive to subtle perception. This is not a claim of medical causation. It is a pattern of association found in historical accounts, ritual practices, and modern reports. Some foods were held in ritual contexts precisely because they alter mood, tone, sleep cycles, or the felt quality of the body in subtle ways that influence attention. In other words, food can be an amplifier of presence, a support for the sensory work of soft gaze, rather than a magic switch that produces sight on its own. Approach the following list as you would any old map: useful, partial, and worth verifying. Each item that follows is presented as a traditional, folkloric, or hypothesis-linked candidate, not as a guarantee. If you try any of them, do so with moderation, with awareness of allergies or medical concerns, and with no expectation of immediate or uniform results. Some traditions say changes appear in a few days, others say months. Practitioners sometimes report perceptual shifts after 7 to 10 days of consistent practice, but that is a report, not a promise. Cacao. Historically prized and later vilified in various encounters between cultures, ceremonial cacao is often spoken of in devotional contexts. Many traditions used cacao as an opening drink, warm, bitter, and sensory. The ritual quality of preparing and sipping a small cup can slow breathing and bring gentle body awareness, which many say supports the soft gaze. Caution: Cacao contains stimulants. If you have cardiovascular concerns, are sensitive to caffeine, or are pregnant, consult a professional and use small amounts. Raw dark chocolate. Less processed dark chocolate that retains terpenes and bitter compounds is sometimes included in similar categories. The sensory richness and the act of savoring a small piece can rotate attention inward and heighten nuance. Caution: sugar content and additives change effects. Choose minimally processed options and be mindful of quantities. Blue and black berries, bilberries, blueberries, blackberries. These fruits carry a long folk history tied to night vision in several cultures. That association may be symbolic, but berries are rich in flavor textures that sharpen sensory discrimination, and they are an easy, low-risk addition to a practice day. Caution: berries are food like any other. Watch for allergies and seasonal availability. Bitter greens: dandelion, chicory, kale, arugula. Bitterness is an ancient taste that has been connected to cleansing rituals and to waking up digestive and sensory systems. The sharpness of bitterness can reorient taste and attention toward edges, which some interpret as strengthening peripheral awareness. Caution: if you are on blood-thinning medication or have specific health conditions, check with a clinician before making large dietary changes. Turmeric and saffron. Both spices have a long ceremonial profile. Turmeric appears in many continental healing cuisines and is associated with warmth and clarity. Saffron has been used in prayerful and meditative contexts for its aroma and vivid color. In folklore, these spices are linked to alertness of mind and subtle mood shifts rather than dramatic metaphysical effects. Caution: saffron is potent and expensive. Turmeric can interact with medications and should be used prudently. Sea vegetables: kelp, nori, wakame. Sea greens are rich in minerals that cultures across coastal regions used for nourishment and ritual. Some modern interpreters suggest a symbolic bridge between salt of the sea traditions and the idea of a body tuned to wave-like perception. This is speculative language, not a physiological claim. Caution: sea vegetables are high in iodine. If you have thyroid conditions, seek guidance. Aromatic herbs: rosemary, basil, holy basil, tulsi. Smell is a direct route to memory and mood. Herbs that change the olfactory backdrop of a session can subtly steer attention. For example, rosemary has been linked to clarity in several folk accounts. Caution: essential oils or concentrated extracts can irritate skin or lungs. Use whole herbs or light infusions. Fermented foods: sauerkraut, kimchi, kefir, miso. Ferments had implicated in many cultures rites of transition and preservation. Their distinct flavors invite slow chewing and mindful tasting, both of which can help steady attention. Some modern theorists discuss gut-brain connections, treat such ideas as hypotheses rather than fact. Caution: fermented foods may not suit everyone's digestion. Introduce them gradually. Edible medicinal mushrooms: reishi, taga, turkey tail. In various traditions, certain culinary medicinal fungi are considered adaptogenic, calming the system and supporting sustained attention. Note, this refers to non-psychedelic culinary or medicinal preparations, not to psychoactive species. Caution: check for contraindications and avoid psychedelic or illegal substances. Consult a health professional if necessary. Omega witch seeds and small fish: chia, flax, sardines in moderation. These appear in some contemporary lists as foods that nourish brain-supporting fats and may support sustained, clear attention. Again, this is an associative claim from folk and modern nutritional ideas, rather than a guarantee of any mystical opening. Caution: allergies to fish and seeds are common. Proceed carefully. Honey and bitter herbal teas. Both have long histories as ceremonial or calming pairings. A small spoonful of honey or a cup of a gentle bitter tea can anchor a preparatory ritual and signal to the nervous system that the session is beginning. Caution: watch doses of honey if diabetic or feeding infants. Black pepper and warming pungents: ginger, black pepper. These spices increase bodily warmth and sensation. In small amounts, they can make the body feel more present, which some practitioners find helpful when practicing attention work. Caution: heartburn or gastrointestinal sensitivities should be considered. Cold-pressed oils and light fasting moments. Some traditions recommend brief fasting or light meals before deep perceptual work. Others suggest moderate oil-based nourishment to ground the body. These are cultural and interpretive preferences rather than prescriptions. Caution: do not undertake extended fasting with medical supervision. These categories are broad, and the historical record is patchy. There were social and political moments when certain foods became suspect or were discouraged by dominant institutions for a variety of reasons: economic, colonial, moral, or practical. To call that suppression is to name a complex process rather than to accuse in a wholesale way. Food prohibitions can be instruments of control, but they can also arise from climate, health, or theological priorities. Keep nuance in mind. If you decide to experiment, treat it as a modest sensory inquiry rather than an initiation. Here is a safe, simple integration you can try, framed as an exploratory practice rather than a promise. Choose a single, small food cue, perhaps a warm, modest cup of ceremonial cacao, or a mild turmeric tea, or a handful of blackberries, something that suits your body and preferences. Prepare it slowly. Let the act of preparation be part of the ritual. Sit in a space with low, warm lighting. If you need to drive or operate machinery, do not do this immediately after anything stimulating. Take the cup or the food in your hands. Notice its warmth, texture, aroma. Breathe in the scent and let your shoulders drop. Bring your eyes to rest on a near object, then allow your eyelids to soften. The soft gaze is not staring, it is a relinquishment of the edge of focus. Let your vision blur a little at the edges. Maintain an open, peripheral awareness. Allow the outer parts of your sight to register color and movement without forcing it into an interpretation. Stay in this state for 5 to 10 minutes. If thoughts arise, notice them and return to the gentle reception of the field of vision and the feel of the food in your hands. Afterwards, jot down anything you noticed. Color shifts, temperature differences, unexpected images, emotional currents. This is not proof of anything metaphysical. It is data for you, an invitation to disciplined curiosity.
For those who like timelines, some practitioners report feeling subtle changes after a single session, others after repeated practice over 7 to 10 days, and some after months. That variability is expected. The important point is consistency and humility. Use a small, regular practice window. Pair it with journaling. Keep your ordinary life responsibilities prioritized. If at any point something feels destabilizing, increased anxiety, sleep disruption, or a sense of being overwhelmed, pause the practice and consult a trusted professional or spiritual guide. A brief doctrinal note is necessary. The Gospel of Mary and the Nag Hammadi corpus are fascinating windows into early Christian-era diversity. They represent strains of thought that used allegory, inner revelation, and complex cosmologies, with figures like the demiurge and archons, to make meaning of human suffering and spiritual ascent. These writings speak in a language of visibility and knowledge, gnosis, that is different from canonical Christian texts. When I cite them or lean on their metaphors, I do so as a describer of a historical current, not as a replacement for any faith tradition you may hold. If you are rooted in Orthodox Christian practice, treat these texts as historical documents, with interpretive value, but not as binding in the way Scripture is for many communities. If you are a spiritual seeker outside that frame, consider the Gnostic terms as symbolic tools, not literal prescriptions. There is also an ethical dimension to this work. Curiosity about hidden things can easily slip into sensationalism or into an escapist desire to name enemies. The practice I describe is not about hunting for demons and strangers or confronting people about alleged attachments. Visibility, in the Gnostic sense, is about strengthening discernment and freeing one's own interior field from patterns of reactivity. Use perception to become more compassionate, not more fearful. If you notice troubling psychological content, intrusive images, persistent anxiety, or behaviors that interfere with functioning, seek the care of qualified mental health professionals. The soft gaze and small food experiments should complement, not replace, responsible medical and psychological care. A short guided invitation follows, offered as a contemplative moment you can take now or later. If you choose to practice, do so with prudence and consent to your own limits. Make a small, warm cup of your chosen food, cacao, herbal tea, or a mild infusion. Dim the lights until the room feels like the inside of a calm shell. Sit comfortably with a straight but relaxed spine. Bring the cup to your face and inhale the scent. Let your eyes rest on the cup, then allow them to soften. Do not force focus. Notice the periphery, the glow of a lamp behind you, the color of a shadow, the slight movement of air on a curtain. Resist the urge to interpret. If a fleeting image or feeling arises, let it be an object of gentle curiosity rather than a narrative to chase. After 5 to 10 minutes, close your eyes and sense the after image. Open a notebook and write the first 3 impressions that come without editing. If you try this, remember the cultural frame. What some Gnostic commentators call archons can be usefully understood as metaphors for habits and emotional patterns. Visibility is a tool for autonomy. It is not a magic talisman, and the foods listed are not keys that open a cosmic lock by themselves. They are supports, rituals, and sensory cues that some traditions and modern practitioners say help steady attention and soften habitual reactivity. I know this territory can feel controversial. Talking about suppressed foods, hidden manuscripts, and altered perception invites critique from many directions. That is necessary and healthy. Keep your critical faculties engaged. Check sources, notice the difference between claim and evidence, and bring your community into the practice when appropriate. If you are part of a faith community, share these ideas as a conversation starter rather than a doctrinal replacement. If you are a solitary seeker, hold the experiments lightly and record what you observe. Finally, if this message has touched a curiosity in you, please share what you tried and what you observed in the comments. Tell us one small detail. Did the cup feel warmer than you expected? Did the room seem wider? Use the word visible in your comment so others can find these reports easily. If you want more explorations like this, historical context blended with cautious practice and simple experiments, subscribe and we will continue to examine the margins where food, attention, and ancient texts meet. Visibility is not a weapon. It is a practice of clarity. Use it to clarify your own interior field, to be kinder to yourself, and to see more clearly how your attention shapes the life you live.